Hi, this is Angie Bowie, and this is Spectrum, the radio show of William S. Tribell.
Welcome to Spectrum with your host, William S. Tribell.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spectrum. I'm William S. Tribell, and tonight my guest is writer, musician, activist, Angie Bowie. Welcome back to the show, Angie.
Well, hi, William. It's so nice to hear you and see you and talk to you again. We had fun the first interview. I'm very excited. Thank you for inviting me back.
Well, absolutely, and it's a pleasure to have you back. I guess, the first show was just after Pop Sex. Your book, Pop Sex, came out. And
That's
now
right.
A new book.
Yes. Fancy Footwork, the poetry and lyrics book has come out, illustrated by Rick Hunt. So that's been exciting. We've been promoting that for the last 6 months or so. But we're still promoting Cat-Astrophe, which is the coloring book for adults and whose royalties are shared between the International Animal Rescue Fund out of London with Alan Knight, who is the chairman of that particular organization, and the hospice in Cleveland, Malachi House, which is for homeless, terminally ill folks. And there's a third called Cat-Astrophe, which is a cat sanctuary in England. So those were the three reasons that we are always chatting about Cat-Astrophe, because it's such a wonderful coloring book. Rick's art, which I know you're familiar with, William, is so conducive to coloring. And so we've been especially talking a lot about it because we think it's a wonderful gift, and folks have been ordering it, and just exciting for us, hoping that the first year that we've been selling it, we sold enough books to make us feel like it was worthwhile to continue, but with a limited promotional budget, we didn't sell enough. And so now, with things picking up promotional-wise, we're coming back to talking about Cat-Astrophe, talking about Pop Sex, our new book, Fancy Footwork, and, of course, Lipstick Legends, which is still doing very well. So thank you for asking.
Yeah,
yes, that's exactly
absolutely
what we're up to.
Well, and such a great cause. And I remember the coloring book coming out, and I was watching for Fancy Footwork, and I got to tell you, it snuck up on me. I missed when it dropped, I guess we'll say. And
well, let's see. I'm pulling it out now, and I think it was probably 6 or so months ago.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. It has been a while, but it.
Well,
I'm very proud of it. I like the illustrations so much.
Yeah, and I was surprised. I somehow I must have. I don't know. I missed it. And so when I saw it was out, of course, I was excited about it because I knew about it. And it's 2 collections of poetry, right? Rick Hunt's art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to do it, but, it just seemed like that was something that we could, put off till another time and do then. And it's a shame because the book is so wonderful with Rick's drawings and with all the poetry. I think it's interesting because it's poetry, but also lyrics. And so I think for some folks who enjoy the music or who are more prone to enjoying poetry, it's interesting to see how closely those two disciplines of writing interconnect weave around each other.
Yeah.
So I guess for those of us, interested and involved, as I know you are in spoken word, it's that moment when you finally think, okay, now I really have to put this collection of work together. And so getting that done was great. And of course, the follow-on from that is now the second musical album, Sterling Moonlinks, which Jude Rawlins is mixing in London as we speak. And I'll be going over to London to listen to the final mixes. And we have 3 or 4 tracks that he wants me to put vocals on. So I'll be able to finish that up. And then we'll have the second musical CD available.
Right.
And I would imagine that that'll be about April or May.
And when second, we're referring to Moon Goddess, right?
Yes, that's the first.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the first collection. And it's weird about Moon Goddess. We were just getting ready to order another pressing of the collection of songs. And the folks that are my managers in London are now, they've gotten very excited about Moon Goddess. And they want to re-record it, and they want to do this, and they want to do that. So I think when these 40 copies of Moon Goddess are sold, this version will never be available again. Because it was an extra, I think you and I have talked about this before. This was recovered from a cassette, and then in 2 studios, it was rebuilt back into a 48-track album, which is extraordinary to me. It makes me happy that technology does such justice to art and creativity on occasions. And this was one of them. I was flabbergasted at how well they were able to recover it. Larry Treadwell, the lead guitarist with Tom Petty, owns the studio that did that work in Los Angeles. And then Jude Rollins is the singer, songwriter, and producer who's taking care of half of the album at his studio in London.
Excellent. Oh, this is exciting. So Moon Goddess will be re-released, redone, you're saying? Yeah.
They actually asked me to pull it, and I said no. I said there's 10 copies left. I said I don't think we need to pull it. We just need to, when they're gone, they're gone. And they were like, "Oh, okay. We thought you had a lot left." I said no. Out of 2,000, they're all gone. We just have a few left, so we won't pull it. We'll just sell it off until there are no more.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, that's so cool, though. Very exciting. And so I guess we will see part 2 and maybe the beginnings of the, what would you call it? The remix of Moon Goddess?
Well, I would call it exactly that. Yeah. The remix. Now we're also, we have a big sort of publishing schedule. Radio Portraits is coming out, which is another opportunity for me to showcase the talent of Rick Hunt and of our guests. Yeah. Because it occurred to us, or to me, that quotes and the exciting body of each of the interviews, plus Rick's artwork, plus the favorite photographs of our guests, would make a fabulous coffee table book of the radio show.
Excellent. Well, and let's talk about that. Since you were on last, you have a radio show on, and is this visual too? Do you podcast along with the show?
It's podcast, but it's not visual.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a podcast audio only.
Okay, excellent. Well, tell everyone about that. It airs Thursdays, right?
Yes. Now tomorrow, Maya Caballero, who's she's like my goddaughter. She's April Sadmeyer's daughter, and she's a marvelous New York singer-songwriter. And her brilliance kind of crept up on me. You know how it does when you have young friends that you adore, either family or friends of family. Right. She was a little itty-bitty, adorable child with my daughter, Stasha. They were best friends in Tucson. And then I went to see her in a show, and she was just as adorable and cute as she could be. And I said to April, "Now, who wrote that song?" And April said, "Oh, she did." And I said, "She's a really good wordsmith." And, of course, the years have gone by. I can't even believe it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That must have been when she was 13 or 14, and now she's 26 or 27, and she's toured Norway and toured France, been to England, toured the West Coast again, gone back to Arizona and played. And she's just knocking them dead, and she has the most charming, they keep referring to her songs as adult lullabies.
Interesting.
And I thought that was a really charming description. We'll put a bunch of songs on the show too, so that everyone can hear and have, listen to her talk about them. But I didn't mean to dwell on that. All I meant is that, yes, it's fun to take those 60. I'm going to have to get you to come on the show, William.
Oh, I'd
we've
love
done
it.
this show. you and I together,
Yeah.
and I know how talented you are and everything
thank
that you
you.
get up to. We haven't had a chance to talk about that, have we?
No, I would love to. Absolutely. That would be amazingly cool for me.
I would love that, and please,
Cool.
allow me when we get to the end of the show to schedule something, because it
Sure.
would just be great. And I follow all the stuff that you do, and whenever you ask me to do anything, it takes me a tenth of a second to say yes.
Well, I
Because,
appreciate it too.
Well, the folks that you enjoy, all we ever want to do is be supportive and help everyone get on with their art.
That's it. Yeah.
And
I think there's like a renaissance happening. It's amazing right now.
I think you're right.
I really do.
I do
think,
too.
the whys and the hows, whatever. But I think it's happening, and you're absolutely correct about like supporting and promoting good art.
Well, I think as we're all so connected, as we're so lucky to live in the age of the internet, where we can look at other folks' work, we can listen to their work. With a press of a button, we can exchange files. We can say, "Oh, here, have a listen to this." Apart from all the marvelous leaps forward as far as actually making music, I love getting all these guys on the show, like Sally from Dream Foundry and Kevin, who started doing all this recording, sending files back and forth. I love that, and just hearing them talk about it, it made me giggle. It's so perfect, isn't it? You're too young to think about it. But if one thinks 30 years ago, I'm just going to send you that percussion track and see what you think. Chop it up, stick it in there.
Yeah.
I wish. You know what I mean? It was always such a drama, and so everything cost so much. You either were making a demo or you were making a master, and the difference was the demo you could do at home, and the master was going to cost you a fortune.
Absolutely.
If you had a big dream.
Yeah.
You remember to go to a studio that you thought would do your work justice. It just became overridingly extravagant,
right,
as one's imagination went on.
Well, and even just the playback, even anything involved in making a track was an ordeal. And let's talk about, let's take a break, but let's start there when we come back. That's very interesting to me.
Absolutely.
Personally, and I know a lot of people out there. We're always talking music on Spectrum, and well, let's play something from Moon Goddess. You wanna?
Oh, perfect. That would be lovely.
Okay.
Yes.
Fires are burning
Welcome back to Spectrum. And if you're just joining me tonight, my guest is Angie Bowie. And we just heard Fires Are Burning from Moon Goddess. And we were talking about this is going to be reissued, redone soon, along with you are in the process of doing part 2.
Yes, the new album is called Sterling Moon Links.
Excellent.
And that is apparently the name I have been bestowed by the Abenaki Nation in the voice of Rick Hunt.
Oh,
and
cool.
When he told me that was my name, I thought, oh, well, now that's such a great name. I think that would make a great title for an album too. So I sort of changed. I was going to call the album the same thing as the book, Fancy Footwork.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's actually quite confusing. If one is a book and one is a musical album, that's a bit confusing. So I changed the name to Sterling Moon Links because I just loved the idea of having been bestowed a spiritual Indian name.
Absolutely.
By Rick. And that was really fun.
Yeah.
But yes, and Fires Are Burning is basically an anthem to all of us who have watched the dancing and shaking of ourselves and all the youngsters as we go through the excitement of teenagedom and up until we're 30. The madness and the excitement and all the craziness that goes with it.
Yeah. And about the book, Fancy Footwork, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is 2 collections of poetry. How would I say it? One from then, one from now?
Yes, the reason they kind of have been referring to it as 2. There were 2 books called The Recent Years and one called The Last Years.
Okay.
And so what it resulted in was a bigger collection than I had thought of in the beginning, and then also with the lyrics. Yes, I'm sorry.
See.
I
understand.
I was about to burst into poetry, and I thought, wait a minute, that's a bit rude. You better see what William has in mind.
No, I would love to have you read something from the collection. Absolutely.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, I have a particular poem in mind. The book fell open to it.
Oh, cool.
And if you don't have a copy of this, you must tell me, William, because I will make sure that one gets sent out to you.
Oh, no, I need one. I said, I was woefully in error because I missed this book dropping, and I've been kicking myself.
Well, yeah. When we were up in Detroit, which I guess was 2 years ago. I think the last time we went off and did a promotional tour, got as far as Detroit, was 2 years ago. Yes, April was with me, and we, the lovely and very talented and wonderful John Lamb, was seconded by Bruce Goh, another pal from Detroit, and he said that John Lamb was the go-to person. And John put together the most wonderful book reading and the most wonderful signing. It was just great in a kind of a gallery exhibition shop, where a lot of the art was for sale and stuff like that. But in a beautiful location, it was just great. And at that particular reading, this new poem got such a welcome, such an ovation, such an introduction. It shocked me. It's called Life's Questions. I'm just asking. Here's something that bothers me. Why do so many people live in the past? Is it because they want to be free? What we learn when we're young are the lessons we spun to understand the world and how we fit in, sometimes with crying, sometimes a grin. Do all those old songs and video clips remind us of a time without hiccups or slips? No, we had plenty of those, and still we study the past. Life in the city is different from town, but life without convenience makes us frown. Progress is not a dirty word. Slowing change, that is abusive and a little absurd. Couldn't we wipe the slate clean? Underneath it all, we understand what we mean. I think the desire to reserve a spot in history is understandable and not a mystery. Having the tools to share every thought, does not mean one cannot be bought. Cherishing one's thoughts and gentling the future is the only passion of which I wish to be master. Or is it that we paddle around, unable to identify the different sounds of revolution and carnage that obviously abound? Have we no say in the government we elect? Or are we like ship's passengers, confined to a deck, on a spaceship that takes us to the galaxy's sights, exploring the stars, skipping off moons, and other delights? Let's prepare for the future and behave like adults instead of showing our children the weak side of life. Let's richen and embolden their futures with education and love, art and how to resolve strife. Let's tackle the difficult, resolve the uncool, bring the 21st century to every school. Our hopes and our dreams reside in the young. Our future rides on what they become.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was amazing. Wow. Wow.
Well, thank you. I don't know about you, but I think we tend to every now and again, in the sentimental nostalgia is charming and we enjoy it.
Yeah.
But then there's the excitement of looking forward, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I totally agree. And the now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just, I was shocked. The audience was so receptive. You know what I mean? It was as if they sparked on it, and it made me very happy. I was like, oh, okay, this is good. Because that one was from, I thought it was only 2 years old, but it's actually 2011. I guess the time doubles.
Yeah. No, that's great. And you're very engaging. So I could imagine being in that crowd. I bet it was a moment.
Yes. Well, I was very lucky. I went to a school where we won prizes, and every year there was a trivium, and that competition and the debating society and all of the arts and drama that we had at the school allowed me to become very good at being engaging.
Yes.
So I appreciate it. Thank you. But I won't take all the credit for it as at a school where they taught us that.
Well, and speaking of that, before the break earlier, we were talking about the changes and things, and this always comes up with musicians, and I'm very curious about it. Is it's a brave new world, if you will. Everything's different. Production, even down to like you can buy track single online. So I mean, totally new world. And in your beginnings, let's do a backstory real quick. See, you met and married David Bowie in '69 and created Ziggy.
No. 1970. You're absolutely close. Yeah.
Okay, but you created the Ziggy Stardust character, so you're the person to ask. No. Do I have this wrong?
No, I did not create the Ziggy Stardust character. Absolutely not. No, I created a lot of the look of David in real life, and David created always the images. Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane. Well, you have to remember, David was the youngest visualizer at, I think it was Walter Thompson Advertising Agency, but sometimes my memory, but anyway, it was the most influential advertising agency in London. And David was the youngest visualizer. So that's not scruffy. That's pretty impressive. So his ability to, for instance, when he did the Decca D-Ram album and, the Laughing Gnome and all of these songs, the first album which came out with Mercury, David Bowie, the Space Oddity one, with the Vasarely blue image behind his head, with the sort of afro, that was like, he and Calvin Mark Lee thought that whole thing up. So I did not design or think of those type of images which related to the music contained in the albums. What I did was I designed the stage shows. I designed how he looked the rest of the time, what they wore, why they were exciting to see and be around at all times, because they were dressed like stars. It was just taking a couple of chapters from the playbooks of the studios in Hollywood, where if you were being groomed by the studio, you were therefore an advertisement for the studio. Right. And so they lent you clothes, they taught you how to sing and dance and do all these extra things and tell jokes, so that you were an all-round entertainer that they could use and make a lot of money out of.
Right. Okay.
So what we did is we tried to, because the boys were all so fabulous, I designed their outfits when they were all together. Once we had, you have to remember, we didn't have the band for the first two albums.
Right.
So, Hunky Dory and Space Oddity, there was no band.
Right. Right.
The band came when David wrote Ziggy Stardust, and that's when we had to have a band to deliver the message.
Right.
So yes,
okay.
I did put it together, but I will not take credit for things that I did not do.
Well, I'm glad you clarified it, because I had it wrong. I had it mixed up. Yeah.
Well, no, not really. It's just, what it's like when you hear about Bob Dylan and you are thinking about an album that you adore, and
right.
Suddenly from nowhere you realize that one song that you absolutely thought all your life was his was actually Woody Guthrie's.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
Good grief. Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's a weird one.
Well,
but I was not responsible for the characters he created, or that,
right.
And one has to remember, of course, that, Ziggy Stardust originally was a comic album cover.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Done by one of our guys who was at the Beckenham Arts Lab with us. But the Americans didn't like it. They wouldn't use it.
Really?
So then it changed, and The Man Who Sold the World became the picture in our living room on the green,
right,
with all the green behind him and David in a dress.
Yeah.
So those I was responsible for that, but not because David hadn't already designed the cover. He had.
I
see.
It
was this wonderful comic book. It was like different, and it was it had a George Underwood feel to it, but it wasn't George Underwood, his best friend. This was another guy who had more of a, those comic and cartoon drawers that are more, they were kind of like drug, they with weird fuzzy hair, and the cartoons were much more in your face. So this guy was that kind of cartoonist.
I got you.
And he did like kind of a little scene from each song.
Right.
All stuck on the cover of, all on one big canvas.
Right.
And the Americans didn't care for it. They thought it was, it didn't have a message to them. And it was wonderful. It was great album cover. I liked it a lot. But then because they wouldn't do it, we went ahead and did the different album cover.
Right.
Which was, and so that one was mine. It gets confusing because I realize when I say, no, David, did all that. Well, there were some that I did. So then I have to stop myself and go back and say, you weren't that wrong, William. But it was just a little bit more on David's side, because Aladdin Sane was his whole concept of what would happen as the ego of Ziggy Stardust went crazy and became reinforced with madness,
Sure.
And anyone who's followed and listened to the wonderful songwriting of David Bowie knows that the flirtation with madness and doing stuff to the point of lunacy was always the cutting edge of how he discussed sanity and insanity. And I guess when you have a brother who's been suffering after coming back from the war zone and coming back from being a tremendous intellectual and eventually falls prey to mental illness, his brother Terry, that would be something that would recur, I think, in anyone's life. That, constantly wondering, it could have been me. I could have been the one that was in Cane Hill Hospital. And so I think that the depth of David's thoughtfulness is what engaged his audience. So where we could have fantasy and excitement and fun stuff like Ziggy Stardust and The Man Who Sold the World and Hunky Dory and all of these great individual albums, I always try to give credit, because there is no taking away from his ability to write, sing, and perform about something that's relevant and very insightful and important.
Oh, yeah. To me, David Bowie is one of the greatest writers of music. To me, I mean,
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, well, I mean, I was going to tell you, Hunky Dory.
No, I'm being cheeky.
Hunky Dory is in my top 10, of all
I do
albums.
too. Hunky Dory's in my top 10. Those first 8 albums.
Yeah.
I am loath to find anything that compares. I don't mean that there aren't better albums. There are. But if you look at the 8 and consider that one person wrote them all.
Yeah.
As opposed to all the different folks that we go to when we go to our record collections.
Right.
It's impressive.
It is.
He's impressive. But like Picasso, one can be impressive as an artist and useless as a human being.
Right. Well, but as an artist yourself, and we've discussed before growing up in Cyprus and in your education, and you were always art minded. Art was always there, so it wasn't like just something you picked up one day. But was it like Into the Flood though? I mean, because you were a trendsetter, an iconic entity. You two. I don't know how to say it, but does that make sense?
No, you said it very well. I don't want to flatter myself.
Well, I'll do it for you.
I don't know about all that, but I do know that you're right. I was lucky. I grew up in a place which was an art gallery all by itself. The whole island of Cyprus is an art gallery.
Right.
With every civilization, the Minoans, the Venetians, the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, every single civilization which surrounds that eastern corner of the Mediterranean came and visited or overwhelmed and occupied the island because of its great beauty, its wealth. Everything about it was something incredible and desirable. So growing up there, by the time I got to Switzerland, by the time the Lausanne Expo started with the French Impressionist exhibition, which was an exhibition that went on for the 3 months of the festival, we performed there. I did in a Théâtre de Poche. I performed in a show called Barbarine by Alfred de Musset with 10 or 12 other folks. And schools all over Switzerland also had their shows that were their top shows put into this theater. And so all of us got to be together during the summer of this exhibition for like 8 weeks, doing various plots, that the people who had designed this World International Festival, the Lausanne Expo, it was called, 1964. And it was just amazing, because what it did is it made all of us, as we were coming up, and we that was the year I took my O-level, so all of us that went to schools and got together and joined in helping to be the talent for what the Lausanne Expo produced as live entertainment. I think we already felt like we were part of something very special.
Yeah, I see.
And so when I got to New York, when I was 16, in 1966, on my way to Connecticut College for Women, there was that same feeling in New York. The Whitney was just opening. I came back about 2 weeks or 3 weeks later from New London, where Connecticut College for Women is, and came to New York and went to see the Whitney. And just, it was like New York was in full flux, like, as you said, about that iconic Renaissance, that explosion of happening dance, music, art. And it was very exciting. And you're right. I think that same Renaissance is happening now. due to the internet, due to the fact that folks are realizing that if we bypass government and thugs, we all get along fine.
It's true.
Yeah. If you just remove the governments and the thugs, we're all good.
Right, right. And speaking of that, you have been very active. I don't want to say politics, but you've been, like I said in the intro, I an activist. You've been active since the beginning.
Yeah, all my life.
All
I
your
don't
life.
know any better.
Yeah,
my father. Yeah. My father used to say, as long as you never go to a Muslim country and open your mouth, you'll stay alive.
Well, and that
but
hasn't,
it's true.
That hasn't changed. You're still very active. Again, I don't want to say politically. I don't, I don't want to use that term.
Well, I guess it's civilly, isn't
there
it?
you go.
It's our civil
there you
rights
go.
that sort of nudge me.
Right.
I always, I feel so much for women. I feel so much for all my gay friends.
Right.
I feel so much for unmarried mothers. I think we tend to take the part of us that is strong and silent and trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And so where we see weakness or frailty or the necessity to help, we reach our hands out, don't we? I mean, that's a normal human reaction. So, I think growing up in Cyprus and watching what imperialism does and the way that imperialist invading countries behave.
Right.
Britain is a much reformed place in some ways, not in terms of the great middle class of Britain being governed and taken care of properly, because Tories and royalists are something that one should avoid at all costs. So
right.
the British have suffered enough now with them. But I think from Cyprus watching that, then to be in Switzerland, which is the most bizarre. I mean, you talk to them about their history, and you have to realize they don't do wars.
No, they don't.
Everyone does wars. You know what I mean? What do you mean there's no wars? Well, there's no wars. We have walls. We have the Alps. We're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay out. We're neutral. Stay out. Just leave us alone.
And they've done a fine. They've stayed to it too.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
And of course, not necessarily without sin.
Yeah.
And without a lot of dues that need to be paid, because the Swiss are certainly not virtuous.
Right.
They're greedy, ambitious, capitalist, and all of the things which generally lead to bad behavior. And as we know, their bad behavior of what they banked and what they didn't ask questions about,
right,
is the slur on their karma.
Yeah.
How their souls are.
Yeah.
But that yet again brings us back to governments, banking institutions, and thugs. Without them, we're good.
Well, and history proves it too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's take another break. Well, what's your favorite Bowie song from those 8 albums we spoke of?
If you'll stay in our lover's story, what you say, you won't be sorry, 'cause Kooks. I think Kooks would be it.
Excellent. All right.
A lot of folks have been saying how they remember singing that song to their children, because they were all young parents at the same time, And I thought about it, and I thought, yes. And I can't, no matter how irritated I become with David, I can't ever take away from the joy and the pleasure he gave me in those first 8 albums when we worked together.
Right.
I just, so yes, I would say Kooks.
Perfect. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Stay in a lover's story. If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. Bought a lot of things to keep you warm and dry, and a funny old crib on which the paint won't dry. I bought you a pair of shoes, a trumpet you can blow, and a book of rules on what to say to people when they pick on you. 'Cause if you stay with us, you're gonna be pretty cookie too. Will you stay in our lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. And if you ever have to go to school, remember how they messed up this old fool. Don't pick fights with the bullies or the cats, 'cause I'm not much cop at punching other people's dads. And if the homework brings you down, then we'll throw it on the fire and take the car downtown. Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you, yes we do. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. Will you stay in a lover's story? Will you stay in a lover's story? Will you stay in a lover's story?
Right, welcome back to Spectrum, and you just heard Kooks, and that's one of my favorite songs. And you're right, those first 8 albums, and for me, Hunky Dory is like I said, top 10 all time.
Yes, me too.
Very cool.
I always adored it, but recently I got less shy about saying it. You know, I kind of, it was everyone else. You know, they were all saying, "Oh well, this reminds me of when my little girl was born and my little boy was born, and we had such a wonderful." We would all sing this, and I thought, my God, so did we.
Yeah,
this is very cute. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, it's got to get old, and I'm mindful of that. Like the question I had about Ziggy Stardust, and I'm sure to this day it's almost weekly for you, or you know what I mean. The song Angie by the Stones. I'm sure you still get those. Like, very,
it's so
constant.
funny because I can't understand it. I've told everyone for 1,000 years. That's how old I feel. That it's got nothing to do with me. So finally, thank you, Keith, for writing the book and saying that it was written for his daughter, because he felt badly because he adored his little girl, Angie, but he didn't get to see a lot of her because they were touring all the time.
Right.
And so that's who he wrote the song for. And I kept saying to people, added to which, you have to understand, this is not Keith's song.
Right.
Mick
well,
wrote this. So Keith must have written the lyrics, because I heard the tune at Mick and Rose's house, and it did not have lyrics then.
Yeah.
And the next time I heard it, they had gone to rehearsal about a week later, and Keith had started putting the words in.
Right.
So, but no one ever said to me that it was for his daughter. You know what I mean? At that time, until the book came out a couple of years ago, I didn't have any confirmation, but I knew that it was nothing to do with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so everyone would say, "Oh, it's you, it's you," and I tried to, and then I just shut up. You know, I thought, "Oh, please shut up. Just be grateful they even." You know, and a couple of times I made a joke. I said, "No, darling, it was written for David," and you know, the hip people got it, but you know, it was like, oh. I couldn't find enough excuses to say, no, actually, guys, I really don't think it's about me.
Right. No, and it still persists. I mean, you know, not everyone's read the book yet.
If they want to play it, when I walk on stage, I go, sure, go ahead, play it. It's fine.
That's so great. But in that sense, if you think about it, it's still a connection to you because of that rumor for all those years. It's still a part of the story. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And in that, that's kind of cool. I mean, I think so.
I would hope so. I think memories are always cool, aren't they? Especially when they're memories of a time in one's life when we're experiencing everything for the first time. You know, I was trying to paint a picture the other day, talking to someone about teenagedom and nutcase job time. And that's basically what it is. You know, that first time when someone says to you, "Oh, have you ever tried lobster?" and you know, you sit down and you think, "Oh, I'm just going to pig out."
Right.
And then you think to yourself, why did I do that? And it's because it's the first time. You know, you've never had lobster before. You get all excited. You start thinking, "Oh, I better pig out and make out like I know what good stuff is." Then later, you think to yourself, maybe a little less lobster would have kept more lobsters alive.
Right. Absolutely. That's wisdom right there.
Well, it's weird, isn't it? It's just how we grow as youngsters, you know. I was lucky. The one thing I never had any interest in was drinking.
That is lucky. I mean,
so I never got excited or interested in having a lot to drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was all about eating. I love to cook and I love to eat. So they used to joke too in the at Mercury Records, and they would say, Irving Green would say, "Well, you're getting Angie to come, aren't you?" And Calvin would say, "Oh, yes, Angie will be there." And when Buddy Miles was recording for Mercury, Calvin brought me in because no one could keep up with him eating. And we'd call lunch, and I would go and I would have every day I would think what would tantalize him and get him excited about the stuff that he was going to record in the afternoon.
Right.
And I was really, I have to say, extremely creative. I would go to the Thai place, I'd go to the Chinese place, I'd go to the Japanese place, and I'd bring back all these goodies, and he and I would sit down and just chow.
Excellent.
And I usually leave the studio about 3 or 4 in the afternoon because I had to get back to Kingston, you know, where my university was, and take care of some work. And so it was a funny feeling to know that my passion, his passion, was eating. Other people's passions were drinking or, I don't know, you know, driving fast cars or gambling or whatever. But all those things from one's youth, I think they become bigger. And in our memories, we remember them with more clarity because it was the first time.
Well, and
makes it more impressive.
In heady times, and speaking of that, you not only survived it, but flourished, which is a rare thing in such scenes, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, well, I was lucky. You know, I wasn't at all interested in drugs.
Right.
I never had anything to do with drugs until David and I split up. And when we split up, then I thought, oh, so drugs are so fantastic that he figured it was better to go and do drugs than to be with me and our family.
Right.
And that made me do drugs. I was so disgusted with him and so sad that I had 3 or 4 years, lost years. So fortunately, the productive years when I needed to be on top of everything, I was cool. But at the breakup years, like 1978, 79, we got divorced in 80, 81. that was bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
Really, there were 3 years there when I was lost too.
Wait, I guess that was right
Just
before.
try to make sense out of it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
No, I guess that was right before his infamous Berlin time, right?
I don't know. I didn't bother to keep
Like-
track of him. He just really, he made me so disgusted. I
Right.
was just, I had no interest. I've had no interest ever since, to be honest.
Right.
It's only recently that I've talked about those 8 albums.
Yeah.
And because a lot of friends of mine would say to me, well, it's not all the work that is despicable. Those first albums were great when you were with them. And I would think, are they
were.
flattering me? Are they trying to?
Oh, no, they
but,
were.
But then I thought, no, maybe that's what people really feel, because I heard it from so many different people.
Yeah. No, that was a musical. They have merit and beyond. Those albums influenced and changed things. And absolutely.
Well, the thing about it is that David was very open. He was, it's like his radar was on.
Yeah.
And just when he started taking a lot of bad drugs, he turned the radar off.
I see, yeah.
It's like he didn't want to hear anyone. He didn't want to hear how it could be better. He didn't want to hear how an album was monotonous in its beat.
Right.
How 4 different tracks stuck in there would lift it and make it exciting. And those conversations had been conversations that he was open to.
Sure.
When there was Woody and Trevor and Mick Ronson and, it was just, and Tony Visconti. Tony Visconti never took any crap. Tony would always say, hey, we might want to change the running order. Let's move this around,
Right.
And everyone would do their very best to make it so exciting. And I think all the time that it was a team effort until it became David Bowie and Corinne Schwab against the world. At that point,
Sure.
he really lost any interest from my point of view, because he was becoming claustrophobic
Yeah.
in who he listened to and what he thought was effective.
Right. I get it. Well, let's plug some stuff. Let's talk what's going on. First of all, AngieBowie.net. Everybody can go there and find the new book, the coloring book.
Yes, and we let's see. This week we have a big technical moment. We've put I don't know what we had to do, but we did something with our server, and now our website is mobile friendly. I believe it starts being mobile friendly next week.
Isn't that
so
cool?
that'll be much better.
You have a really busy year. 2016 is going to be wow. When the record drops, I want world premiere.
Oh, well, absolutely. And you got it, William.
I want it.
Would love to do that.
Excellent. Perfect. Absolutely. No, and I am so glad. I mean, I have been super busy, and I was aware Fancy Footwork was coming, and then somehow I woke up one day and months had passed, and here's the book, and I dropped the ball. Yeah.
This is what I notice more than anything. I guess why I come back to that subject of teamwork. What our technology has given us is it's allowed us to become even more isolated.
Yeah.
And in a way, that might be interesting if one was looking for the distilled version of a human being. But seeing as how we human beings are also communal and mammals, and we kind of like gathering and getting together.
Right.
It's changed our way of operating. Have you noticed? In the olden days, and I say that with a laugh, we always had 3 or 4 friends, you remember, who'd come to the house and go, oh, well, do you want me to take the books down? I'll take the books down. I'll look after the sales.
Yeah.
You do the reading. And
Right.
the girlfriend said, oh, well, don't worry. I'll get you drinks and everything. And before you knew it, your team had you out the door and down to the reading.
Yeah.
Now, it's like we've become isolated. We're so used to working alone that we don't even think, hey, I could use some help on this. I could use someone to come and say, here, let me carry the books. I'll take care of getting them sold. I'll do this. I'll do that. We're just like, okay, yeah, right, whatever. But we don't ask for the help because we believe we have to be all things to all people, and we know we can't.
Well, and like you were saying in earlier, the change in all these venues of art, music or otherwise, it's created some pluses and some negatives. I like what you're pointing out. Yeah, absolutely. And
I think it does. It changes how we interact.
Right. But I still say we're having a renaissance, as it were, and I see all over the country, even in the country, in rural places, lit groups popping up and venues.
Oh, yeah.
And this we're talking about literature and poetry now, but it affects the music too. Like, we are hearing more front porch music, and I like that.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I like the sound of a live album better than an overproduced album. I like that. Me too,
and also, yeah, absolutely. I think you're right, and I think also about maybe not just writing and music.
Right.
I think where there is a huge wealth of talent is in mini movies.
Absolutely.
In movies,
yes,
animation. I think the fact that folks can take their laptop, plug in a program, and in their own time and in their own way, either animate their artwork or get their friends to come and be their actors.
Isn't
to
it
me,
great?
That is really thrilling.
Yes, I think so too. And anybody, just like with all the arts now, it's making it more accessible to the average Joe, let's say, or the person who's interested. Like we were talking earlier, the production of an album back in the day was a monster, and now the same technology that filled a room is on a program for your laptop.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And
it's true, isn't it?
It is.
It's like, okay.
And with movie making, I'm going to use the word renaissance, because you can take a handy cam out into the world and create a viable film. You can,
That's right.
You can participate in the popular, the mainstream, whereas before,
exactly,
you didn't have access, without the money.
Well, and I think the other thing is that it stops all that whining. Oh, you can't get a part in a movie.
Right.
Oh, all that whining and jackassery. Yeah, you want to make a movie? Make movies. Get the movie done.
Right.
I love that. I love the fact that, one can't plead, the bureaucratic structure is stopping me from expressing myself. No one's stopping you. Laziness and indolence are stopping you. That's all. And I am the first offender. I am so lazy and so indolent. I'm also really busy. I work a lot,
Yeah.
But I know that when I get really committed to something, no one's seen the amount of work that I could process and get going and get through. And I know you're like that. We're all like that, because now we have the technology of the 21st century to give us the tools.
Spike Jonze recently made a Kanye West video on his cell phone.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you know this story about Spike Jonze? This is such a great story. May I tell you this story really quickly?
Absolutely.
It's
yes.
very fast.
Please.
I was reading an interview with him, and he's so delightful. But then he got absolutely adorable. He said, wait a minute. He said, I made my first 2 pictures on credit cards. And he went ahead and explained how he'd done it. And then when he got to the end of the movie and he paid off all the credit cards, he said, and back they came with even more credit, so I knew I could make another movie.
Excellent.
So charming.
That's great.
It's all those years of us being at the bottom of the pole, artists and the folks that are creatives, as Serena Kowalski always likes to call it, and Rick Hunt, the creatives who have always been the last man in line.
Yeah.
Now it's like we have a privilege. We have a perk. And the internet is definitely that perk and privilege.
Absolutely. I agree totally. Well, Angie,
very exciting. It's and thank you. This has been so great, William. You're always such a joy to talk to.
Yeah, we're running out of time, but I wish we had more. And like I said, when the album drops, I want the world premiere. Let's do a show solely about that record.
Oh, well, I would love to do that, and absolutely. I will write it down, and also I've got the book sitting right here for you.
Excellent.
The Fancy Footwork.
All right,
darling. Well, all I can say is thank you so much for thinking of me and inviting me to join you on your show. I've enjoyed it so much, as always. You're such a gracious host and always so well informed.
It's always wonderful having you on. Well, everyone, my guest tonight has been Angie Bowie.
Join us here on Spectrum with your host, William S. Tribell. Each week, a different guest will join William for a chat on Spectrum.